Jets Nation, we are with Ethan Greenberg here at the Senior Bowl. What was your thoughts of Aaron Glenn's press conference? So what are your expectations for him, man?
Well, I think that really what stands out is the authenticity of Aaron Glenn. You could see that when he was talking to the media. And I think, obviously, covering the Jets over the last, this is now my 10th season.
10th season?
Yeah, I'm going in on 10.
Wow, veteran.
I think it's a breath of fresh air, and I think that's the type of stuff that players respond to. Being a former player, Aaron Glenn can talk about everything and know, if you're in that locker room, you know that your head coach has been through it before. So between the scouting background, and between the head coaching, or the defensive coordinator, assistant defensive backs coach background, there's really nothing that Aaron Glenn hasn't done. And starting from where he started as the bottom of the coaching realms and now being a head coach, I think it's a breath of fresh air. And if you're a Jets fan, you're excited. But Aaron Glenn would be the first one to tell you that it's not about winning the press conference, it's about winning football games. And it's going to be a ride, and he said it himself, put your seatbelt on. So I'm excited to see what's up.
And what gets me the most fired up, Ethan, is the fact that he wanted this job. I feel like it's rare when someone was drafted by the New York Jets, start off as a scout, and he had the Jets at the top of his list of being the head coach. The fact that he wants this job fires me up even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story, first of all.
Yeah.
And he said that no one could have written this story better for his life. But it's also it's not just about playing for the Jets, it's about playing in New York, understanding what comes with that, the media attention, and things are a little different in New York. And I know maybe some people think that's maybe a little bit of a cop-out. It's it's one of 32 teams, whatever. Things are different in New York. You're under a microscope all the time, and Aaron Glenn definitely seems to have the personality to weather the storm of what could be a bumpy New York media ride. And so I think if you're a fan, if you're a player, you should be excited about the direction of the future, especially this roster is talented. There's young core pieces all around, and I'm excited to see what happens, even though this offseason is going to be a lot of discussion. What happens at quarterback, that's obviously a big piece of the puzzle. So let's see what happens. But overall, I would think if you're a fan, you should be excited about the direction of the New York Jets.
And last question I have for you, Ethan. Darren Mougey, the new GM, what have you learned about him, and how do you think the pairing with him and Aaron Glenn is going to work out?
I was excited to see that they had somewhat of a background or a history together. If you haven't heard the story, the Broncos, when they hired Sean Payton in 2022, they actually interviewed Aaron Glenn for the head coaching job. And Mougey had told the story at the press conference where it's they asked Glenn in the interview, what would your team message be the first time you address your team?
He got up there and he did it all himself.
Yeah, and the fact that he was able to do it, and then at that time, being a defensive coordinator, you're wow, this guy really blew me away. And to be able to learn, from Sean Payton in New Orleans, he talked about two things, and I think it's awesome. How to take a good team in New Orleans and have sustained success in New Orleans. That's what he learned from Sean Payton. And then what he learned from Dan Campbell in Detroit is how to take a team that struggled for a long time and bring them up to the number 1 seed. So Aaron Glenn, he checks all the boxes. And so, in terms of Mougey, it's interesting because Mougey's the young guy of the two of them.
Right?
And, I didn't really know a ton about him before, but everyone I've spoken to down here in Mobile, everyone says that he just seems to have a fast ascension to even assistant general manager with the Broncos. And if you're able to survive multiple regimes and ownership change and continue to get promoted, you got to be doing something right. And, I spoke to Mike Tannenbaum yesterday, who was a part of the 33rd team, who helped with the searching of both the GM and the head coach. He said, look, at the end of the day, it was Woody and Christopher Johnson's decision who to hire. But talking to people about Darren Mougey, you just get the sense that he's pretty sharp all the way around. And he's a guy it was interesting to hear. And, I was speaking to somebody else, I don't remember who said it, that said, sometimes it's a good thing when the head coach and the GM don't have, a long relationship together, because it forces you to collaborate and over-communicate. And obviously Glenn and Mougey have a relationship. It's just not one where they worked in the same building for a long time or have known each other for a long time, but it's not like they're total strangers.
Well, Ethan, thank you so much for the insight. Taking time. We're at the Reese's Senior Bowl, Roundtable Sports. Ethan Greenberg for the New York Jets. Appreciate it, Ethan.
Cool, appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.